Good evening. My name is Jillian McDonald. Welcome to the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo Virtual Community Town Hall. Thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight will be our final regularly scheduled Town Hall. We're here tonight to take your important questions regarding the municipal response to COVID-19, flood recovery, and other municipal matters. Our panelists include Mayor Don Scott, Chief Jody Butts from Regional Emergency Services, Jamie Doyle, the municipality's Chief Administrative Officer, Matthew Huff, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, Chris Booth, Manager of Planning and Development, Greg Wolf, Chief Building Safety Codes Officer. From the Alberta Legislature, Fort McMurray Lac La Biche MLA, Layla Goodridge, Kevin Weidlich, the President and CEO of Wood Buffalo Economic Development Corporation, Executive Director with Oil Sands Community Alliance, Kareem Zarifa. From the Insurance Bureau of Canada, Rob Dupree, Director, Consumer and Industry Relations, Western, Jen McManus, VP, Canadian Red Cross for Alberta and Northwest Territories. From the Alberta Emergency Management Agency, Brad Geddes, Executive Director, Recovery. And from Service Alberta, Consumer Investigations Unit Manager, Trevor Addison. We want to hear your important questions. If you would like to ask a question of one of our panelists this evening, please hit *3 on your phone, and you will be directed to an operator who will take your question. We encourage you to ask your questions live on the line. However, if you aren't comfortable, we can read them out for you. Mayor Don Scott is going to have some opening remarks before we get into questions. Mayor Scott.
Yeah, thanks again for everyone who's joining us. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 8 and traditional Métis territory. It's been over a month since the flood hit, and it's been 2 months since the COVID-19 state of emergency. And I must say that we owe a great debt of thanks to so many in this region, the first responders, the nurses, the doctors, the volunteers, and all those impacted by the flood, and all the people of this community. I've always said that this is one damn tough town, and I'd say with all the challenges that we are facing, we are definitely proving that to be true. I've always believed that the people of our region are naturally tough. You know, we get knocked down and we get back up. So to all of those who've reached out to their neighbors and helped others, I'm just so grateful for that, and I think all of Mayor and Council is united in our many thanks. So thanks again for that. This is going to be our final telephone town hall this evening in the series, but we will be doing other town halls in the future. But please make sure that you reach out and get your questions in. And if you don't get a question answered tonight and you need to reach out and get someone to ask or answer that question, you can always email me at mayor, M-A-Y-O-R, at rmwb.ca.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Now we're going to turn to our question queue. Again, if you would like to ask a question of one of our panelists this evening, please press *3 on your phone and you will be connected to an operator. Our first question this evening comes from Diana, and this will be for Jen from Red Cross. Diana asks, I haven't managed to collect the $600 being offered by Red Cross to each household affected by the flooding. What should I be doing about that? Jen?
Thanks, Jillian. Thanks, Diana, for the question. If you've been affected by flooding in the mandatory evacuation zones in Fort McMurray and you have not yet received your $600 per household being offered by the Canadian Red Cross, perhaps it's because you didn't give us an email when you registered with us, or we haven't validated your identification with us, or perhaps you haven't registered with us. So there's a couple of things that we would like you to do. If you haven't registered with us, please call us at 1-800-863-6582 to register between the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Monday to Friday. We're going to be moving to a call center hours on the weekends from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you've received a phone call from the Canadian Red Cross because you have registered with us, but you didn't have an email at the time to have a digital electronic funds transfer of $600, we'd ask that you come to our Franklin Avenue location at 10019B Franklin Avenue, and that team of Red Crossers will help validate your identification, and then we can provide you with $600 per household with gift cards. And the hours for that in Fort McMurray validation is 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And starting next week, the Franklin office will be open Tuesdays and Thursdays. So please check with us on the hours. Due to COVID-19, which Mayor Scott has mentioned, we've all been in this. To ensure health protocols are followed, if you're coming to our Franklin site, you'll be greeted by a security guard in the parking lot, and you'll be guided through the process. And again, if you haven't received a phone call from the Red Cross, please call us. The other message I want to give everybody, and Diana, thanks for the question, is that if you are receiving a phone call from the Canadian Red Cross, we will be providing validation of your registration number. Please do not give out that number. If you're asked for it, it's not a valid Red Cross call. We will have that number already, and then we will validate and confirm who you are. If you haven't received $600 from the Canadian Red Cross and you still just need more direction other than this town hall, please don't hesitate to call the Red Cross team at 1-800-863-6582. Thanks for the question. Thanks, Jillian. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Jen. Again, *3 on your phone if you would like to ask a question of one of our panelists this evening. Our next question will be for Chief Jody Butts, and it's from Cullen. Cullen asks, can you tell me if there is still a fire ban on? Jody?
Thank you, Jillian, and hello, Cullen. I'm pleased to say that the fire ban has been lifted. Earlier this week, the Minister of Alberta Agriculture and Forestry removed the fire ban from the rural areas of the Wood Buffalo region. So what is in effect is a fire advisory, but what that does allow is the safe wood campfires, backyard fire pits, charcoal briquette barbecues, use of propane, natural gas, or powered appliances, catalytic or infrared style heaters, and a safe burning with a permit. What remains prohibited is the burning, excluding the campfires, is the burning without a fire pit or permit, and burning non-organic material and obviously fireworks and exploding targets.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you, Cullen, for your question. If you would like to ask a question of one of our panelists, please make sure you hit *3 on your phone, and you'll be directed to an operator to take your question. Our next question will be for our Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, Matthew Huff, and this comes from Leslie. And Leslie asks, what is the status of lifting the boil water advisory in Tymberlee? Matthew?
Good evening. Thank you for your question. I will speak specifically about Tymberlee to start. The estimated timeline is 3 to 5 weeks. However, the timeline is subject to change because during the cleaning process, structural damage was identified at one of the Tymberlee reservoirs. Repairs are already in progress, and once complete, the Tymberlee reservoir distribution system will be disinfected and flushed. So I encourage everyone to keep an eye on rmwb.ca/water for updates. And there are also a lot of answers to frequently asked questions that you may be interested in.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Our next question will be for Brad, and this comes from Betty. Betty says that I applied for Disaster Financial Assistance Program and received an application number 2 weeks ago, wondering the timeline that a case manager will contact me. Brad Geddes from Alberta Emergency Management Agency, could you take this question, please?
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Betty, for applying to the Disaster Recovery Program. I appreciate that it has been some time since you applied and the case manager to get back to you. I'm very pleased to share that case managers have been assigned to every active file, and they are actively calling and following up with applicants. I will follow up on your case and encourage a case manager to reach out to you as soon as they can. So again, we are now sending out calls to case managers for all of those people that have applied. and you should be hearing a call within the next week. And if you don't hear anything, don't hesitate to call our call center, and we'll track down that information for you. Going forward, I expect that people should be hearing within a week of application for new applications as they come in. Thank you very much.
Brad, could you let everyone know what that call center phone number is, please?
I sure can. Just one moment here. You used to have it memorized.
It's MLA Layla Goodrich here. I can give that phone number, and I've also got a piece to add.
Sure, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
All right, so the phone number for the Alberta Emergency Management Agency is 1-888-671-1111. And so that's 1-888-671-1111. And one other piece that I would urge you, Betty, if you're having any troubles with the disaster recovery plan, please do not hesitate to reach out to my office. You can call my office at 780-588-7979, and again, 780-588-7979, or you can send an email, and we can follow up on that. And I was just chatting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and his office earlier today, and they have let me know that they have dedicated some more resources to ensure that people hear back from the adjudicators in a more timely process going forward.
Thank you so much to Brad and Layla for answering Betty's question. Appreciate that. Again, star 3 on your phone if you would like to ask one of your important questions of our panelists this evening. Our next question will be for Kevin Weidlich, and it comes from Chris. And Chris asks, do we know when Canadian Tire will open? Kevin?
Hi, thank you, Chris, for that question. No, I don't know exactly when Canadian Tire will open, and I cannot speak for Canadian Tire. So, but you can contact them directly. But in a general sense, retail businesses like Canadian Tire have been opening, and as soon as they can. And some good news: some similar businesses have reopened and opened in temporary locations, such as the Home Hardware is in a temporary location up in Grgoire. Rona is now up and running and doing taking customers. So there is progress, and we are getting some hardware retailers back up and running. I'd encourage you to reach out to Canadian Tire directly and ask them.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Again, star 3 on your phone if you would like to ask a question this evening. Our next question will be for our Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, Matthew Huff, and this comes from Ashley, live on the line. Ashley, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, yes, I'd like to first say thanks for everything that you guys are doing with the floods and with the COVID response. My concern is the streets, the potholes. I hit a pothole last week and flattened 2 tires in my car. It cost me $800. I'm just wondering if there's a plan to fix some of the roads, 63 especially through town, and the Hospital Street area.
Thank you so much for your question, Ashley, and I'll ask Matthew Huff to take that.
Indeed, I drive those same streets and feel the same about the work that needs to be done. We have a maintenance program each year that is multi-layered, so to speak. We are going to be completely rehabilitating some municipal roads. We're going to be milling and paving others, and of course we have our annual pothole and curb and gutter repair program. So you'll be seeing all of that going on throughout the summer. I will say, however, that the section of road that you're referring to, the access to Highway 63, is a provincial responsibility. We have been reaching out to our provincial counterparts to ask for that work to be prioritized. We have received a number of maps indicating that that is planned work for this season. So fingers crossed, we'll see that work proceed post haste, and be patient with us as we will be doing quite a bit of work on our own roads this summer.
Thank you, Matthew.
Jillian,
I was just going to
Layla
see if Layla had anything to add. Go right ahead.
Wonderful. So as part of our government's response to COVID, we decided to do some accelerated capital maintenance, which will include many areas along Highway 63, so many of those areas that you did and that you've highlighted, Ashley, and understand that we have advocated very strongly to the Minister of Transportation, both myself and MLA Yao, on the importance of getting this infrastructure completed, and it will create many jobs in our area, but will also just make our life a lot better. And I'm sorry to hear about your car.
Thank you so much, Layla, and thank you, Matthew, for answering that question. We want to hear your important questions on any municipal issue, so please press *3 on your phone to get into line to ask your questions. Our next question will be for Chris Booth, Manager of Planning and Development, and this comes from John, live on the line. John, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hello. I've been in this town quite a bit off and on over a number of years, and I realized we had some incredible booms. We're building 2,000 houses and all kinds of wonderful things in a year, and it was a madhouse. Recently, we still have a good 30-40% of people that are working in the industries, in trades that have no trade tickets whatsoever. And most customers have no idea what exactly is going on and or how little training or education that some of these people are working in their houses with. Is it possible to go get the representative from the apprenticeship board or whatnot, considering everybody's in the one area, to go around and ask some of these important questions so that we get going forward the correct housing that we deserve in this town?
Thank you so much for your question. I'm actually going to ask Greg Wolf, Chief Building Safety Codes Officer, to take that one.
Just a comment on the qualifications of tradesmen. This is again where we strongly encourage customers and homeowners to be getting permits, because it's through the permit stage that qualifications of tradesmen are actually confirmed and checked. And the best way that anybody can prevent having unqualified people working on anything in their home is to just get those permits. And regarding the trades representatives, yes, there's a branch of the provincial government that has representatives in the town, and they do respond on a complaint basis, and they also do random visits on site. And so they're working to ensure that the maximum number of apprentices per journeyman is not exceeded, and that where mandatory trades tickets are required to perform work, that those people do have those tickets. So they are out there. If you're aware of a particular job where this is going on, you can reach out to them. And I don't know if Layla would be able to comment on that as well.
Thank you, Greg. Layla, do you have anything to add?
Well, I will say that as far as tradespeople and apprentices, the Minister of Advanced Education and the Ministry of Advanced Education is responsible for that qualification standard, and our government has definitely been putting a focus on the trades, and we have spent quite a bit of time and energy trying to look at the trades programs to ensure that we have the workforce that we need, not just for right now, but for the future. And I really appreciated your comments.
Thank you so much. Again, *3 on your phone will get you into the queue to ask your important questions of one of our panelists this evening. We've had a couple of questions come in regarding COVID cases. So I'm wondering, Mayor Scott, could you comment on where people can find information on active COVID cases in Fort McMurray?
Yes, I can give you the updated numbers. So there are currently 2 active COVID-19 cases in Fort McMurray, and there's been 21 recovered cases. So there are 0 active cases outside of the urban service area of Fort McMurray, and there are 3 recovered outside the urban service area of Fort McMurray. So if anyone's looking for the data or the information, it's alberta.ca/COVID-19, where people can see the information for new numbers.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Our next question comes from Marguerite. Marguerite asks, how long will it take to receive funds once applications are submitted? How will funds be received? And this is for Jen McManus of Red Cross. So they're wondering about that $600 fund.
Thanks, Jillian. Thanks, Marguerite. A couple of options, Marguerite, and we're trying to make this as easy and as seamless as possible for families, knowing that there are a lot of things happening in everybody's lives since the flooding event in April. So, Marguerite, if you've registered with the Canadian Red Cross and you gave us an email address, how you would receive the $600 from the Canadian Red Cross would be through an electronic funds transfer and digital communication from us. If you did not have an email at the time of registration, you can add one now by calling 1-800-863-6582 and speaking to a Red Cross team member. I would encourage that you call us back and talk about your specific situation. If an electronic funds transfer is not something that would work for you and your family, then we will look at an in-community preloaded gift card for you and validating who you are and your family and that you were in the mandatory evacuation zone for the flooding event in April. So those are some options for you. Again, if you have very specific circumstances, talking to our team by calling 1-800-863-6582. That's helpful for us to know your circumstances, and then we can work with you on your recovery plan. Thanks, Jillian. Thanks, Marguerite.
Thank you so much, Jen. And again, that phone number for Red Cross is 1-800-863-6582. Our next question comes from Marilyn, and this will be for Deputy Chief Administrative Officer Matthew Huff. Marilyn asks, will I need to get my hot water on-demand system flushed for sediment as part of flushing home lines? Matthew?
Thank you for the question again. The resource for this is rmwb.ca/water, and in fact, there is an appliance servicing frequently asked questions section accessible through that site. The advice that we're giving is to look up your manufacturer's information and follow that. I expect that to ensure that that appliance is maintained appropriately, that yes, you will need to flush that system.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you for your question. If you would like to ask a question of one of our panelists, please get your important questions in. We've got about 40 minutes remaining, and you can do that by hitting *3 on your phone, and you'll be directed to an operator. Our next question comes from Maria. Maria asks, how can I pay my property tax if municipal buildings are closed? And I will ask Jamie Doyle, our CAO, to take that.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you for the question, Maria. If you go onto our website, rmwb.ca, there will be a moving banner there at the top. If you slide it over, you'll see a property tax banner. Click on that. That'll redirect you into the payment options. So on the right-hand side after that, you'll see a link for payment options. When you go in there, you can find a link to pay online. You can send in a check, or you can simply wait until we open, as we have deferred those property taxes until October 1st. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Our next question will be for DCAO Matthew Huff, and it comes from Paul. Paul asks, why did you close the walkway from Lions Park to Waterways? Matthew?
The information I have regarding this is that that walkway is now open Forgive me if my source is inaccurate, but that's what I believe is the case. I haven't been out there myself today, and while I've got the opportunity, I will also note, as was mentioned earlier, that all of the dog parks in Fort McMurray are now open also. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you so much for your question. If you would like to ask a question of one of our panelists, please hit *3 on your phone and you'll be directed to an operator. We can take your questions live on the line or we can read them out for you. Our next question will be for Kareem Zarifa, and this is from Joey. Joey asks, with so many locals not working, are businesses and industry looking at local or Alberta workers over fly-in, fly-out? Kareem?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question, Joey. I guess as far as local hires and local procurement, many of my members, as a matter of fact, all of my members have a commitment in some way, shape, or form to hiring local as well as procuring local. And on December 10th, 2019, I did present to Council and provided an update on local hires as well as local procurement of goods and services. So that's on the RMWB website, so you can get some information there. As far as the current workforce right now, it's not a surprise to everybody. Due to the pandemic and due to the collapse in oil prices, capital projects and capital budgets have been scaled back substantially, north of $7 billion in the oil and gas sector. There has been some voluntary curtailment of production, and so we're hoping, we anticipate that the recovery will not happen overnight, but until all the health advisories are lifted both municipally and provincially, and we get back to some sort of normal, there's a rough road ahead for the oil and gas sector for the foreseeable future. Thanks, Jillian, as well.
Thank you so much for that. Our next question will come live on the line from Andrea. Andrea, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi. Last winter, a lot of people had called into the pulse line, myself included, regarding the lack of lights along Highway 63, specifically between Beacon Hill and Confed. I know that we were told many, many times that they were looking at it and working on it. I'm really hoping that this will actually be fixed so that it's not such a massive hazard this winter. Since we're talking about roadways, could somebody please answer if those lights will all be working for this winter?
Thank you so much for your question. I'm going to ask CAO Jamie Doyle to start, and then I'll go to Layla Goodridge afterwards.
Thank you for the question, and I felt I should be responding as I kind of led some of this, and I counted one day 51 burnt out lights from Hospital Street Bridge to Taganova. So I appreciate you calling in and asking the question. And personally, I've spoken with the province to share my concern from the community that these are creating unsafe driving conditions. So I had been assured that they are being looked at and directed to the right person. Perhaps Deputy CAO Matthew Huff could chime in, or maybe MLA Layla Goodridge could also chime in.
MLA Goodridge, do you have anything to add?
Yes. So thank you for your question. It's a great question. So this came up, and it was something that I was very concerned about as a resident of Fort McMurray. And so they hired a contractor to repair all the lights and begin repairs last winter, and they started proceeding on the work. In doing some of that work, they found out that it was a little bit more complicated than initially thought. But I have been assured that they are working at fixing all of the remaining lights on Highway 63 to be addressed so that we can have that working before next winter. I have seen some of the contractors out in the last little while before COVID kind of hit up doing some of that work. And we're making sure that that work is done between Highway 63, between Mackenzie Boulevard through Taganova. because there's a series of different light outages, as you said, and so some of them were just a replacement of the bulb, and some needed to have the bulbs and the ballasts repaired or replaced. And so that's what the work, which created a little bit of hiccups, but the repairs are underway and should be completed. Most of them should already have been completed, but the remaining few will be completed shortly.
Thank you, Layla, and Mayor Scott would also like to weigh in.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in on that. We do get a lot of emails about those lights, and I just wanted to reinforce something that I think is evident from what's been answered, but the municipality has no control over those lights. They are the provincial responsibility because they're along the highway. So all we can do is lobby and say, please get it done. But our two MLAs, Layla Goodrich and Tanny Yao, thankfully Layla Goodrich is participating this evening. You can always send them emails and make sure that the right people are on the job of getting that done. And I know Layla's working hard at it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Again, star 3 on your phone if you would like to ask a question of one of our panelists this evening. Our next question will be for Brad Geddes, and this comes from Joe. Joe asks, what is the time frame for the DRP to send over an evaluator to our homes? Brad?
Great. Thank you very much, Joe. Joe, it should be about 2 to 3 weeks after you completed your application. We're working on expediting that with additional resources. So at this time, I would encourage you to take as many pictures as you can and do the work that you need to do to make your house or apartment safe, warm, and dry. And you can always call us at 1-888-671-1111 if you have questions in the meantime. But again, I would encourage you to begin your work and take your pictures, as many pictures as possible, and as always, get the necessary permits that you may need from RMWB to make sure that the work is done safely. So I hope I've answered your question. MLA Goodrich, is anything to add?
Yes, thank you. One thing to note on the disaster recovery program is that we are hiring and deploying some additional resources to be able to keep up with the larger number of cases. And also, any of the applications are triaged based on seriousness and the impact, and so priority is always given to those who have been completely displaced, followed then by people who have experienced damage to structures and other hardships. So that's sometimes why there's a little bit more of a delay on some of these, but understand that we are here and we are working really hard. And please don't hesitate to call my office if you're having any problems. My office can help navigate some of these challenges. The number again is 780-588-7979.
Thank you so much for that, Brad and Layla. Our next question will be for CAO Jamie Doyle, and it comes from Paul. And Paul asks or says, I've heard rumors that you are looking to expropriate land from residents. Is this true? Jamie?
Thank you for the question. And I wouldn't necessarily say expropriate, but what I can say is that I spoke to this briefly last night in council, and I wish the answer was easy and straightforward, but it's not. Over the next month, our staff, we have a dedicated flood recovery team, and what they'll be doing is analyzing this event and then, of course, bringing forward redevelopment standards or if there are any, back to council in a public forum. So stay tuned over the next month. We'll have a lot of those answers coming forth here in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Again, star 3 on your phone if you would like to ask a question of one of our panelists this evening. We're about halfway through tonight's call. Just a reminder to our panelists who are on the line, please make sure that you keep your phones on mute unless you're called on to speak. Our next question will be for Deputy CAO Matthew Huff, and this comes from Randy. Randy asks, where can I find updates for flushing status? Are water test results available? Matthew?
Thanks, Randy. Again, rmwb.ca/water for our boil water advisory updates. as far as water test results, we had some data in circulation a few days after the flood. What I can assure you is that the water quality tests of our distribution system are what they should be. We are, of course, continuing to advise and adhere to Alberta Health Services Boil Water Advisory. So if anyone in the affected area intends on consuming the water, it should be boiled for at least 1 minute and to decrease the chlorine smell for longer than that. So please stay tuned because over the next few weeks, systematically that boil water advisory will be lifted.
Thank you so much, Matthew. And again, *3 on your phone if you would like to ask a question of one of our panelists. Our next question comes from Omar, and this will likely be for Brad Geddes. Omar asks, how can I add more photos to my DRP application? I have more than the limit allows. Brad?
Great question. Thank you very much, Joe. So, Omar, what you can do is you'll be receiving a link from your case manager, and you'll be able to upload the files at that time. The other mechanism is that when you and your case manager are working through the file, you can email them directly to them using a zip file or a series of emails. So, Omar, I'll follow up afterwards to connect you with the case manager, but you can always call them at 1-888-671-1111. If you don't mind, Joe, I'll just add one more point here. The other feedback that I'm receiving is that some people are nervous to submit their application without all of the details. Again, it's an opportunity, not a requirement. So I would encourage people, if they have some of the details, some of the information, to go ahead and click the submit button. We can always add in photos, we can add in insurance letters and other things at a later date. What's most important is that we get your name and address and some basic information about how the damage impacted you and your family. So please submit what you can originally, and then as you work with the case manager, you can send the files either uploading to the link they provide you or directly through email. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brad. We've got about 20 minutes remaining, so if you'd like to ask a question, please hit *3 on your phone now, and you'll be directed to an operator to take your question. Our next question will be for CAO Jamie Doyle, and it comes from Renee. Renee asks, how can residents apply for the reimbursement of hotel expenses incurred from being evacuated? Mayor Scott made reference to this. Jamie?
Thank you, Renee, for the question. Very good one. You can call the Pulse line 743-7000, and they will direct you to the appropriate number. But it's as simple as that, 743-7000. Give them a call, and they'll put you in contact with the right individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And again, our Pulse line is 780-743-7000. Our next question will be for DCAO Matthew Huff, and it comes live on the line from Jimmy. Jimmy, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi. I live downtown, obviously, and right after the flood, I found that my...
Jimmy, I'm so sorry, but your line is breaking up on us, and we're hearing a lot of background noise.
Okay, how's it now? Is it better?
That's way better, Thank you.
Alrighty, I noticed that after the flood, my basement wasn't draining really well, so I called in the plumbers, and they determined that my sewer line had sunken. Or sagged from the waters on the just on my lawn. So I was wondering if there is any assistance for me or any remediation for that.
Thank you so much for your question, Jimmy. I'm actually going to ask Brad Geddes from Alberta Emergency Management Agency to talk to you about that one.
Thank you very much for that question. That sometimes can occur because of the flooding that on the property and overland flooding. So I would encourage you to make an application into the program. and we can send an evaluator out to confirm the cause. You might want to also check, though, with your insurance company to see if there's any coverage.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brad. Our next question will be for Mayor Scott, and it comes from Terry. Terry asks, I heard we are allowed to use an RV to live in during recovery. Did you relax RV parking? Mayor Scott?
Yes, that happened last night at last night's council meeting. So this formally allows recreational vehicles on residential lots that were impacted by the flood for living and sleeping accommodations on flood-affected properties. So it's similar to what happened after the fire. There were similar rules. So these rules are going to be in place until October 1st, 2020, and there's a possibility of an extension. If you have questions about that, please call Planning and Development with the city, and you can get all the details. But yes, there was a change made at last night's council meeting.
Thank you so much, Mayor Scott. Our next question is from Anonymous, and it will be for DCAO Matthew Huff. Is there a timeline when the recycling program will resume? Matthew.
The RMWB is developing a relaunch program plan, and that will include the restarting the curbside recycling program. Discussions today suggest that we will start with likely paper materials first because it's safer for our staff to handle. But what I ask you to do is to be patient as we figure out what's necessary to keep our staff safe as we ask them to separate and process recyclable materials. And stay tuned. We'll be making announcements soon about when that program will be reinstated. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Again, *3 on your phone if you would like to ask a question of one of our panelists. You've got about 10 more minutes to get those questions in, so hit *3 on your phone and you'll be directed to an operator. Our next question comes live on the line from Sue. Sue, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm just calling, and I think you guys are doing a great job, by the way. Just want to give everybody a thank you very much. And I just wanted to ask, is there any way that we're getting any kind of discount on our water bill until the water is able to be back up where it should be in a week or two? I'm just kind of budgeting, so I'm just sort of worried about that and thinking.
Thank you so much for your important question, Sue. And DCAO Matthew Huff will take that.
RMWB Council voted to support the forgiveness of the fixed fee portion of your bill. So if you look at one of your previous bills, you'll see what that will amount to. The total revenue reduction that results in is $2.4 million. So it's a significant contribution made by council to offset the extra effort that we've asked residents to make during the boil water advisory period.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you, Sue, for your question. Our next question is from Tracy. Tracy asks, how can I find information on financial assistance? I'm going to ask Jen from Red Cross to take this first, and then I'll ask Emma Layla Goodridge to take that afterwards. So, Jen, Red Cross?
Yeah, thanks, Jillian. Thanks, Tracy. Tracy, first, hopefully you've registered with us and that you have received your $600 for your household. If you haven't, please call 1-800-863-6582. And also, that team is well-suited to give you information about local resources in Fort McMurray. Fort McMurray has a fantastic and vibrant social profits sector, voluntary sector, and so our team does have a roster of information for referrals and information to share with you. And it'll be a private and confidential discussion with our team. We'll provide information, and then you can pivot into those great organizations that are in Fort McMurray. Again, the 1-800 number is 863-6582, the Canadian Red Cross, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Friday, switching to 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the weekends. And our team can give you some referral information. And I'll let you, Jillian, take it back over to MLA Goodrich.
Thank you so much. And the reason I'm throwing this over to you, MLA Goodrich, is because there wasn't any information on what financial assistance they're looking for. So maybe you can talk about what else is available.
No, that's a great question. And there was the emergency evacuation payment support that made available to anyone that was under the mandatory evacuation. So if you haven't applied for that, please go online and to alberta.ca, and if you look for emergency evacuation payments, you can apply there. Alternatively, if you're looking for any other supports, there's a number of different supports currently available to help people through both the provincial and the federal government. So please call my office at 780-588-7979. The number is 780-588-7979, and you can have a confidential conversation with my in my office to explore various options that are available. And if required, we can point you into the Member of Parliament to have some of those supports as well, depending on your circumstance. So please call our office. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen and Layla. Our next question comes from Andy, and this will be for CAO, Jamie Doyle. Andy asks, is there support for tickets for parking and towing for vehicles removed during flood cleanup? Jamie?
Thanks, Jill, and thanks, Andy, for the question. If you remember correctly, during one of these town halls, we had been saying that if your vehicle is towed, we certainly cover those costs. However, we hadn't mentioned about tickets being issued for parking in the flood hazard areas, depending on in the wet zone or dry zone. What I would encourage you to do is send the details of your ticket to townhall@rmwb.ca, so it can be redirected to me or the appropriate person, so we can have a look at the circumstances surrounding the ticket. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamie. We've got about 10 minutes remaining. Our next question comes from Louis. Louis says, news release says that accelerated work on berms could be complete within 2 years. Is this actually achievable? I'll ask Deputy Chief Administrative Officer Matthew Huff to take that.
Thank you for the question. It is achievable with finishing touches following in 2022. The full flood mitigation program, past, present, and future plan will be presented to Council. The Mayor's motion made and supported by Council last night will see administration return to Council within 30 days. To talk in detail about the program itself and seek Council's support for an accelerated program.
Thank you, Matthew. Our next question will be for Kareem, and it comes from Byron. Byron asks, what is the policy regarding fly-in, fly-out in Fort McMurray? Do people have to self-isolate? Kareem?
Thanks, Byron, for the question. So basically, whether people come in from out of town by plane or by bus, they go through a screening procedure before being allowed to enter the site or board a vehicle or airplane. And this generally is in the form of a health questionnaire and or a temperature check. As well, as of April 20th, the federal government provided guidance to airlines, both commercial and chartered, for mandatory masks for all passengers. And so masks have become the norm on both airplanes and vehicles or buses. I guess further to your question, if they're staying in lodges, They are then self-isolated in their own rooms with their own bathrooms, and meals are served to them. And if they're from town and going to site, people have to self-isolate themselves and determine that they do have some of the symptoms and therefore will not be permitted on site. So that's generally the process as it stands. And I mentioned this last week. Again, notwithstanding the province rolling out its relaunch strategy, sites will continue to have site-critical staff for the foreseeable future. We're working very diligently with AHS to maintain our processes and procedures to ensure the health and safety of our workforce as well as the communities we operate. I mentioned this as well last week, that site-critical staff is still at a 50% reduction, and we are working very diligently on a variety of guidance documents with AHS. One is the guidance for managers and operators of industrial work camps. The other one that was most recently released by AHS at the beginning of the month was a guidance document for COVID outbreak prevention, control, and management in work camps and on work sites. There's also a dedicated AHS phone number that's 24/7, and as well as an email contact. And all sites now have swab kits to do testing on site. So thanks again for the question, Byron, and I hope I've provided enough detail.
Thank you so much. And that was Kareem Zarifa, Executive Director from the Oil Sands Community Alliance. We've got just about under 9 minutes left here. So our next question will be for MLA Goodridge, and this comes from Mark. Mark asks, what is the plan for opening the beach and boat launch at Grgoire Lake? And I know everybody's probably wondering that since it's gotten so nice outside. Layla?
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mark. That's a great question. Because of COVID, we announced some delays in opening up our provincial parks. However, the goal is to have our provincial parks opening as of June 1st to take that. So hopefully that will be part of that. Specifically on the boat launch, I don't have the specific information on that, and so I don't want to speak specifically on that one, but if you want to give my office a phone at 780-588-7979, then we'll be able to get back to you. But the camps and Grgoire and all of our provincial parks across Alberta will be opening as of June 1st.
Thank you so much, Layla. Our next question will be I'll have to look here. It's from Andrew, and Andrew asks, are businesses supposed to be limiting access to keep social distancing in shops? Are they still doing COVID testing in Fort McMurray? And I'm going to ask Trevor Addison from Service Alberta to take that. Trevor?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer for you there. It's not something that we deal with. I believe there's various precautions put in place by different businesses. So, example, barbershops and hairstylists, et cetera, have different conditions that they put in place, whether the staff are wearing masks and wearing protective equipment. But the business can ask, is a private property for people entering there to wear specific masks or equipment. That's about all I could offer you.
Hi, it's Brad here. If you don't mind, I'll add on to the answer. Jill?
Yep, go right ahead, Brad.
So I would encourage residents or small businesses, if they have any questions, it can be confusing with the different stages and the different timings, but the best information is, as MLA Goodrich noted earlier, is at alberta.ca COVID, and you can look there, and as a consumer, you can look to see what you need to do to take care of yourself, and if you're a small business owner, or medium-sized business owner what you need to do to take care of your customers. So I would encourage people to check out that very good resource.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Brad. And I believe Kevin Weidlich will also weigh in.
Yes, thank you, and a very good question. So, Alberta, and just to amplify what was said earlier, so Alberta's relaunch strategy does provide also guidelines for businesses of various sectors on what the best practices are. If you're interested to know what those specific guidelines are, we've compiled the information as well. So if you go to wbcentral.biz, that's wbcentral.biz, and look for the guidelines, or simply search guidelines. They will pop up, and all of the different sectors and industries, best practices are available there.
Thank you so much. And I believe we'll be on to our final question this evening, and this will be for CAO Jamie Doyle. This comes from Joel. Joel asks, when will the public library be opening, even just for a few hours a day? Jamie?
Thank you, Jill, and thank you for the question. And I do get this question quite often. The library is in phase 2 of the relaunch strategy to open, and that's tentatively scheduled for June 19th. However, phase 2 is also reliant on the success of phase 1. So that being said, we'll continue to follow guidance of our provincial partners and get that library open as soon as we can.
Thank you, Jamie. That's all the time that we have for this evening for our final regularly scheduled town hall. Before we wrap up, though, Mayor Scott would like to say a few words.
I think there was just a question that was asked a little while ago, and I don't think anyone was able to get to it, but it was how many swabs have been done in the region for COVID-19. It's 4,979, and that's as of yesterday. So I just wanted to once again thank all the participants, in particular MLA Goodrich, who's the other elected official participating this evening. We're certainly grateful for all the work that MLA Goodrich has done. And thanks to the senior leadership and all the people who've made these town halls possible. We will be doing more in the future. This is the last in this series, but there will be more in the future. So please take care, everybody, and stay safe.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Before I get to my closing remarks here, I just wanted to send out some kudos from Randy. He says, kudos to all involved on these town hall meetings, and will you consider doing more in the future? And as Mayor Scott said, obviously, we will definitely be looking at hosting these again when the time requires it. So we recognize that due to high call volumes, you may not have had your question addressed, so you can please email us at townhall@rmwb.ca with your questions. Thank you to our panelists for taking the time to engage with residents this evening. Special thanks to Converso for supporting and hosting our town halls, and a huge thank you to our residents. Stay safe, stay strong, and have a wonderful evening.